And for this week, let me tell you how I actually found out about this story, because honestly, it was actually pretty crazy. Now, for those of you who actually own an iPhone and stuff like that, you know when you would swipe to the left and you'll find a little section about the news, and most of it would be reporting about what's going on in your local area and what's going on with your country and all that kind of stuff. And since I am Canadian, I do get a lot of news about what's going on in Canada and around my area as well. But then there's this one little article that really caught my interest, and I look at it and I'm like, what the fridge is it? And honestly, all I could say is that it is just crazy. Like, wow, I cannot believe I found something like this, and it definitely was a fascinating read, I must say. Now, this is actually regarding the worst thing that would ever come out of Canada, or at least what this article is explaining what is the worst thing. Now, if you would go and ask anyone else, like maybe not in Canada, but just ask literally anyone else, what would be the worst thing to ever come out of Canada, you'll probably get a variety of answers. Some people would probably say that it would be celebrities like Justin Bieber and Tom Green. Others would say it could be whack job politicians like Rob Ford and René Lévesque. Or some people could say that it could be the creation of poutine and how it could quickly clog up your arteries before you can even list any of the ingredients that are in there. Or the worst of them all could be those people who would say sorry so many times for the smallest and insignificant things, which I'll tell you right now, in real life, I'm actually kind of one of them. But this article is saying that it is none of that. It's something that is far worse than any of those things combined. And it is actually the most popular Canadian children's program, Caillou. So, some of you are probably curious. You may have never even heard about what Caillou is. So, here's the thing with Caillou. It's basically the story of this bald-headed 4-year-old boy. And what he does, well, is just looking into his life. That's it. Like, you know what? I'm just gonna go and say it. Screw Seinfeld. This is the real TV show about nothing. That's all that it is. You just see Caillou doing a thing. And that's it. That's all he does. And let me just go and read a little bit here. Produced in Canada and inspired by a Quebec children's book series, Caillou attracts a stunning level of animosity for a series about the relatively uncontroversial daily life of a 4-year-old boy. So that's what it is. You just see the life of Caillou and that's it. But my God, people hate Caillou. Like, it is ridiculous. Apparently, it actually stated that if you go and Google Caillou hate, you'll find that there are over 400,000 search results, which would even include YouTube videos, Facebook pages, articles, and all that kind of stuff. And even on IMDb, you would find that there are so many people slamming it and try to give it so many negative reviews. So you might be wondering, why is it that this show right over here that's just about a 4-year-old bald-headed boy is getting so much hate? Like, what is there to hate about Caillou? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Caillou is such a freaking annoying brat. Apparently, Caillou has, like, no manners, no respect whatsoever. He constantly whines and complains. In fact, where can I go and read this? Okay, yeah, it says here. The reason for all the hate is because Caillou is a shameless whiner. Virtually every episode of the show focuses on Caillou whining his way through a mundane task without reprimand or consequence. For lengthy segments, in fact, whining can constitute Caillou's only interaction with the surrounding world. And what is actually very interesting is that there's even a video version of this entire article, and the guy would even show an entire clip just coming from one episode, which would actually go on for a while, of all the whining that Caillou would have. Like, whenever he's not necessarily getting what he wants or things are not going his way, like, you just see Caillou going, "Hey, but that's not fair, but I wanted this. I just want to have that. It's dark in here, Mommy." Like, you're gonna get that into every freaking episode. And sometimes it can go into extreme levels as well. Like, he can even throw out godforsaken temper tantrums. And actually, a good point that it even brought up is that Caillou's commitment to brattiness is so total. In fact, it is included in the theme song, where Caillou would say, "Growing up is not so tough." I kind of screwed that up. Anyways, "Growing up is not so tough, except when I've had enough." And at that clip right there, you just see Caillou, like, whining and complaining. Like, he would legit throw a temper tantrum. So you pretty much get it immediately in the theme song that Caillou would be whining and complaining his way through life and doesn't seem ashamed of it. It sounds like he's proud of his whining and complaining. Is that, hey, as long as it works, you know? As long as I scream and I whine and I complain to everything around me, I would end up getting what I want, right? Oh my God, it's ridiculous. But the worst thing that would actually come out of it, why there are parents who actually passionately hate Caillou, is mainly because when children would watch this, it has been reported many times, and it's actually very common, that people would just immediately, well, not people in general, for God's sakes, I don't see an adult trying to copy Caillou, that children would watch this and they would think that Caillou's actions are actually okay, that it is fine to throw temper tantrums and to be whining all the time in order to go and get what you want, because, hey, if Caillou does it, then it's okay for me to do it as well. And by the way, I just want to say right now, if you don't know what Caillou means, actually, Caillou is actually the French word for rock or pebble, something in which you want to throw at the little brat after listening to 10 minutes of his frickin' whining. But the worst part about it, the worst part about why is it that children are so influenced to be as whiny and bratty as Caillou, is that the world that Caillou is set in, it's so paranormal. It is so unnatural. It's the fact that Caillou would constantly whine and complain, like, even through everything in his life, and there are no consequences. Caillou somehow lives in this world that there is no discipline and there is no consequences to his actions. Like, nothing bad would happen to Caillou, even when he is at his worst behavior. And his parents, they just do his every whim. They're not even parents. They're just like servants that do everything that Caillou wishes, and all they can do is just deal with Caillou's crap. That's why children think that it's okay what Caillou is doing, because they don't think there's much consequences to what Caillou is doing. And let me tell you right now, this is not the kind of children's show where kids would actually learn a lesson, you know, stuff like brush your teeth or learn the alphabet or learning how to do math or do your homework or do your chores. Like, honestly, the chances of watching a Caillou episode where you would learn your lesson is as small as winning a lottery ticket. Like, you'd be incredibly lucky if your kid would watch an episode of Caillou and they would learn something from it, with the exception of being a massive brat and you can get whatever you want by just whining and complaining and nothing bad will happen to you. So that's the huge problem, is that it somehow seems to be encouraging kids to be a brat, to be whining and complaining. In fact, one of the worst things about it is that when other people that are not Canadian that would watch Caillou, and I'm just going to read this in the article. Apparently, this is news to me, but sadly, it's pretty much saying that this has understandably led to theories that this is an accurate portrayal of Canadian parenting and that Canada is raising a generation of psychopaths, or that Caillou's parents are so blasted on Canadian weed that they are unable to summon their presence of mind necessary to properly discipline their child. So basically, there are some people that apparently would legitimately believe that this is how Canadian parenting works. Like, we're not daddy of 5 bad parenting, but we're still pretty bad parents for not really giving a crap. Or we would end up being just so high on weed that we just don't care. Like, we're just way too zoned out to even notice that we would have a kid or something like that, which I'm going to say right now, no, this is not Canadian parenting. This is not good parenting in general. In fact, this would actually go and lead to an archetype of people, which are actually called Cailloux. And if you want me to describe to you what a Caillou is, it's actually something that no one should be, by the way. A Caillou is someone who has no sense of respect and no sense of discipline, and all they can think about is their needs and themselves. And they would always whine and complain their way in life. Like, the only way that they could interact when things are not necessarily going in their way is just by whining and complaining. And even the article itself on its video actually did bring up some examples of Caillou, where you got some celebrities that are just a bunch of Cailloux, like the Kardashians. You would have rich white people that are just a bunch of Cailloux. You would have a lot of dumb American Cailloux who are so foolish to think that it's a good idea to elect another Caillou as their president. And yeah, so on and so forth. And actually, if you want to find a place where it is littered with nothing but Cailloux, then just look at the comment section. No matter what it is, whether it be a video, a Facebook post, or whatever, you will definitely find a whole bunch of Cailloux right there. In fact, as a YouTuber, that's part of my job, is dealing with a whole bunch of freaking Cailloux. But yeah, honestly, it's absolutely ridiculous with how Caillou is pretty much going. And the craziest thing about Caillou is that, holy crap, it is still going on to this day. I kid you not. As I'm recording this, Caillou is almost turning 20 years old. I remember as a kid when Caillou was a brand new thing on television. It started, I believe, somewhere in 1998 or somewhere around that. And it's still going on to this day. They're still making Caillou episodes. But some of you might be wondering, okay, Caillou is so bad to the point that people absolutely hate it, and there are numerous petitions out there that would go tell people to take Caillou off the air. Why is it still going on? Well, the big reason, according to this article, is saying that Caillou is just so cheap to make. I mean, right now there are over 200 episodes right now, and it even says right here, somehow I can't really speak. One reason may be that the show is cheap. Caillou features bargain basement animation, a bare bones soundtrack, and a cast of as few as 5 voice actors. So really, there isn't much to go and create a Caillou episode. Like, when you do think about it, it is actually very true, considering the animation is highly simplistic. Like, this is some of the most simplistic animation that you could find. There's no massive complexity with Caillou's movements or anything like that. Also, at the same time, like, just a few voice actors just doing it on the fly, like, that's no problem right there. And even, like, the writing. Like I said, this is a show about nothing. So all you have to do is just think of a scenario that Caillou would be and just write it there. And literally, that's it. Just write, Caillou visits a firehouse. Caillou visits the doctor. Caillou checks out his grandma for the 20th time. Caillou would just find a bug. Literally, that's it. That's all you have to write for freaking Caillou. And because of that, it actually makes great filler. That's all it is. It's just TV fluff that you would put in on specific mornings and stuff like that so that kids can actually go and watch. And there are some parents out there who would actually just use Caillou kind of as an excuse to go and distract their kids, not necessarily realizing the consequences that would come with it. So, with all that said, though, like, if you are a parent, like, you probably have to learn about your kids regarding discipline. You have to point out that what Caillou is doing is actually very bad to make sure that they themselves don't become someone like Caillou. You pretty much have to do the same thing, like if your child just stumbled upon seeing Donald Trump on television. It is your responsibility as a parent to point that out and say that the person that you see on television is a very bad person and you should not be like that. You need to learn to respect others. You need to learn to be nice. You need to learn to go and not complain your way through life, because whining and complaining will get you nowhere, and it makes you look like a bad person, like who you see on TV, whether it be like Trump or Caillou. So that's kind of the big thing, is that parents, if you want to go and take care of your kid, if you want to be a good parent, just point out that Caillou is not good. Your kid should not be like Caillou. If your kid does watch Caillou, you need to point out the things that you have to go and tell them what to do and what not to do in that situation. Like I said, Caillou does not offer much lessons, so it's your responsibility to offer the lessons. So that's going to be your job, to go and teach your kid what is okay and what is not okay, what is good behavior and what is not. So parents, that's what you should do. Raise your kid right. Don't raise your kid to be a Caillou.